I started this experiment because I was willing to buy a couple Blight maps just to run them for fun. And the guy I was buying them from happened to have 19. He asked me if I wanted them all, and I said yeah, sure. And I ended up spending roughly 270 chaos. That was the bulk price to buy 19 tier 11 Blight maps of all sorts of layouts. So I was not looking for a particular layout or anything. Now, Blight maps are usually known to be a money making, especially if you have a build that can run above tier 10 would be recommended, because that's where you start to see most good loots, and obviously it's more profitable than low tier ones, and the price is higher. But nonetheless, whatever tier of Blight maps are always profitable, especially if you run bulk of them. If you run just one, you might end up unlucky, not getting anything. You might think that the Blight maps are not profitable. Now, this is indeed not true. It's a well-known thing. Now, what is not really a clear factor in the profit that you make out of the Blight maps is how to count your profit, what to count in your profit. So that's why I wanted to try to make a test to see what actually should be counted as profit in running Blight maps. Now, using excellence, we can have a rough estimate of what I have in that dump tab, which is all the loot I found in the Blight maps. I found 2 Exalt. I would say that out of 19 maps, which by the way I failed 3, so technically we are talking about a profit out of 16 Blight maps tier 11, not 19, but I digress. I found 2 Exalts. I don't think that 2 Exalts are hard to find in a bunch of Blight maps, especially maybe one should be counted in, but let's count them in anyway, because after all, that's my actual profit. Obviously your profit might change depend on your luck, because after all it's still an RNG game, but nonetheless I found 2 Exalts. I would say if you don't like this idea, just count 350 chaos out of the profit, which is fine. But I'd say that at least 1 Exalt out of 16 to 19 maps you're going to find them. Now, I found some chaos. Not all these 290 chaos are from just drops from the maps. I found an Empower level 3 that I not corrupted, which I did not risk to corrupt, and I sold for 95 chaos. And I found some other stuff that I also sold for some chaos, and I dumped all those chaos in the dump tab, because these sales are still part of the profit that you make out of the maps, and that's a very important thing, sales, and that's what I want to talk about in this video especially. Now, stacked decks are also the item that makes you break even with your maps. Everything else is profit, but usually the stacked decks are what makes you break even. Now, obviously I spent 270 chaos to run the Blight maps. I failed 3 of them. That's I'll stop saying it now, and we're gonna count 19 anyway, but still, I'm not breaking even. Now, all the rest, it's not very valuable. Now, I did not find 62 teal oil. I found some teal oils, and I turned every other lower oil into teals because I'm using them. Now, here is where we start the real discussion. Do I count the 62 chaos into the profit? If I would sell those teal oils, maybe. It would be profit, yes, but if I'm not selling them, that's not profit. And honestly, I never bought a single teal oil in the league. We are 2 or 3 weeks in the league, it doesn't really matter. Like, you never buy them because you find enough Cassie around in just by running normal maps that it's gonna provide enough oils that if you upgrade them by vendor recipeing them, or if you have the tab, the new Blight tab, that allows you to upgrade them straight away. If you do so, you're never gonna run out of teal oil. Unless you just started the league and you want to run Blight maps from the get-go, then maybe you would have to buy some. But in that case, I'm going to use the ones I find without having any need to buy any later. If you look at the profit, that Excellence says I made, in that dump tab I have almost 2000 Ks. Now obviously this is not true, because if we go and look at what's valuable in this tab, it's not much. I'd say we can stop about here. Now why do I say we stop here is because everything else that is in that tab, it is indeed calculated in, it is indeed sellable, but are we going to actually sell all these items for 1K's transaction each? I don't think so. Beside the fact that Excellence take the prices from Pure Ninja, which are not exactly correct in the sense that those are averages, or at least you're not gonna sell the Emperor's Luck card for 1.83 Ks. You're gonna sell them maybe for 1 if you sell them, and even if you do, you have to do the transaction every time, so that means you have to stop what you're doing, go back to your hideout, wait for the guy to come in, and then trade, and then go back to what you were doing just for 1 Ks. If you're making that much out of Blight maps, if you have 2 Exalts in your stash tabs, and 208 and 290 Ks, I don't think it's a good idea to stop and do 1Ks trades anymore. And I'm not saying put them up in the market and then never fucking answer, right? Just don't put them in the market. Don't even bother to put them in a 1Ks tab that you never answer to people for. You're never gonna want to sell those things anyway. So these things are not really profit. They could be profit. Let's say you want to stacked decks are the perfect example. You're not going to sell 1 for 2 Ks. You're going to sell 89 for 178 Ks at once. And that's where you start to make profit. Plus, yes, they are 2 Ks, but that's the lowest price for when you're not buying in bulk. I've been selling them between 2.5 to 3 Ks each, which is a much higher price. And that's why I was saying before, usually stacked decks are what makes you break even. Stacked decks alone are what makes you break even when running Blight maps, because when you sell it in bulk you can have a higher price because commodity. Now if we would count only everything that I would actually sell in this tab, I would say that I'm not willing to trade anything that is below, I'd say below a 20K's total value. Meaning, for example, yes, the Crimson Oil are only 10, but I can sell them all at once and get 25Ks. I don't mind to stop my mapping to get 25Ks in one single trade. I would mind it a lot if I have to spend 10 times the amount of time by stopping 10 times to sell them one by one individually. Now, because of this, all the profit that you make out of Blight maps is hugely inflated if you count everything that you got into the profit. Because even if it's a single map for 3Ks, let's say I'm not willing to sell anything that is below 5Ks, I'm not gonna have that much profit, right? We can easily check it by just setting the threshold to 5Ks. Now you can see Excellence is now counting in everything that is 5Ks or above. Now that looks much more like the actual profit that I've made out of those Blight maps, because I'm not going to stop and sell anything that is below 5Ks each. So probably this card I won't even sell, I'll keep, or I'll sell for whatever, it's 6Ks. Some stuff I won't anyway, mainly because I want to keep them. For example, the Harbinger orbs, I want to keep them because maybe I'm tinkering with them later. So this is not a profit. Yes, I do have the item, and technically it is a profit because in case of need you can always sell them and those go. You know that most currencies go, but should I count them in? I'm not making a profit out of them if I just keep them the way they are, and they are not really useful to buy pretty much anything, because no one is going to sell you a Shav for, I don't know, 200 Harbinger orbs. Nobody's gonna do that. Now it is true that I dropped 2 Exalts, and I would say that in a pool of 19 tier 11 or higher Blight maps, it's not so uncommon to find at least one. So for the sake of the video, I'll count them both because it's still the profit that I've made. But bear in mind, obviously, this is RNG and you might end up with different results because you haven't dropped a single Exalt. Now, by setting the threshold to 5Ks, I'm not seeing, for example, the stacked X price, because I still have 89 of them, and if I sell them for 2Ks each, I'm going to get roughly 180 Ks, which is something that you should be counting in your profit, because, trust me, don't open stacked X, just sell them, especially sell them in bulk. Put them in a tab and look at the price as it is for bulk, not for single sales. You're not going to sell one at a time. You're aiming to sell them at people that buy 100 at a time. This is why stacked X are so good, is because you can sell them in bulk and they easily pay back for all the maps that you run, and you break even just with stacked X. And that's roughly 220 Ks. I'm not breaking even just with the stacked X, that's true, because I also failed 3 out of the 19 maps, so I would have got maybe 30 more, which would be another 60 Ks. So 220 plus 60, that's 280, meaning I spent 270 and I'm just in stacked X getting 280, which means I'm breaking even. Now again, I failed 3 maps, but we're counting 19 nonetheless, because it can happen that it's a bad layout, whatever the fuck it happens. Sometimes there is those stupid mobs that go underground and never come up, and as soon as you go away, they all come up in a bunch and they go towards the pump and they fuck your map. So that's a thing that can happen. I run them all with the Herald of Thunder, and really it's a 30x build just to get started, because at least at the time of this recording in Harvest League, the price of some of the things like the Lone Messenger Keystone are insanely pricey. I paid 13x just for that thing, which allows you to have the build. Then you have to buy everything else, the Impulsa, the staff, and this and that. So this is not a good build. But a Fireball Ignite Trickster, that's a way cheaper build that you can get going for 5 to 6x, talking about the 2 links with the staff and the chest, 6 linked, and all the rest of the gear that you actually need, plus maybe even a 21-20 or even 23 Fireball and 21-23 Fire Trap, so you can actually melt the bosses down, because those become an issue. But either way, whatever build you're using, you're always not certain to run them all. You can fail some, and that's why I'm not counting this profit out of 16 maps, because that's the loot from 16 map, but I had a pool of 19, of which 3 I failed. Now this is almost all I'm willing to convert into actual chaos that I can actually use to buy other things that I would count into the profit that I've made out of the Blight maps. And here is why. Again, I'm not going to sell all this stuff because it's annoying to do so. If you want to convert every single item that is in this tab into chaos, you're going to make the 1900 plus chaos that were actually these 2 things that were calculated from excellence. It's true. But if we look at what I'm actually going to make out of those Blight maps, only considering what I'm going to convert into pure chaos, this is it. And if we look at excellence, it's not that much. Now I put in the oils, it might be a little bit higher, but compared to the 19 plus hundreds, that's very different. Now you have to remove 270 chaos out of it, which leaves me with roughly 500 and something chaos profit, which is not bad at all. But I ran 19 maps, 5 minutes to clear the map and 5 minutes to loot the map, which means it took me roughly 3 hours. So the profit that I've made, it's 500 Ks in 3 hours, 160 Ks per hour or something like that. If you look at excellence, yes, you've made 500 Ks per hour, but if you're actually doing the work to convert all the currencies, you're not making that much at all, which is still a good profit, by the way. I do not mind to make an Exalt an hour for sure. Like, it's 100% guaranteed that you're going to make some money out of Blight maps. If you don't know any other thing profits you, just run Blight maps. Whatever tier works. Just get, again, I think it's Nathan Walker. He has, I'm gonna leave the link in the description. He has a great build guide about Ignite Trickster that works wonderfully on Blight maps. So I know this was long-winded, but I hope that makes you understand how to calculate your own profit out of maps. Whatever you do, really, if you're running 5 sets of Atziri runs, if you run Legion, if you run whatever you want, if you start farming them, first of all, do not take a sample size of 1, because that might just mean that you're going to be unlucky and you're not going to make any money out of it. You're going to waste maybe 40k on that set, and then you're going to complain, oh yeah, Legion is not profitable. That's not fucking true. It is in the long run, but you have to have a bigger sample size. But you also have to consider that you're not going to convert everything. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. If you want to make the most out of it, you should actually. But are you willing to trade white maps for half a KS each? Are you willing to trade essences for half a KS each? Are you willing to trade hundreds of those things one by one for half a KS each? I don't think so. And that's why the profit is very, very different compared to what it's actually showed by Excellence, for example. Well, anyway, thanks for watching and sorry for the long rant, but I hope this is good information for everyone, and good luck with your Blight maps.